somehow surprised I managed to sneak into this guy's calendar. But there he is. He's Virgil Herring. Actually, he's been on the show, folks, twice before. Virgil, I remember the one there when you talked about how to go from bad to good and good to great. And that was one of my favorites. It was downloaded by the ton. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, man. Listen, folks, the audio listeners, you can see Virgil in his sweet studio there. If you go to markimmelman.com, just, pardon me, YouTube, and just go and search Mark Immelman. Virgil, awesome setup there. Tell the folks from around the globe who haven't heard of you a little bit about you and how you came to where you are, please.
Well, my name is Virgil Herring. I went to Mississippi State University in the golf management program. Mm-hmm. My mentor was the great Bill Strasbaugh.
Yeah.
Bill Strasbaugh is so great that he won every major award that the PGA offers. So they named the fifth award the Bill Strasbaugh Award. So that makes me very fortunate. Mm-hmm. I've had the opportunity to coach over 200 kids to play college golf. I've coached 6 national champions, and probably the most prominent tour player that I've coached for 8 years was Brandt Snedeker. And
he turned out good. He made a bit of spending money on the PGA Tour.
He sure did. He should be really proud of himself. He's been not only is he a great role model and beacon of light for the tour, but he does great charity work for our community here in Nashville, especially for junior golf. Heck, our junior tour is named the Sneds Tour. Yeah. So we are very grateful for all that Brandt provides. I have a couple of podcasts. Yours is On the Mark, mine's On the Verge, and written 3 books. And I teach golf here. I have a studio in my home. Mm-hmm. I felt like financially it makes the most sense in the world we live in today. TrackMan, I've been a long time proponent of TrackMan. So this is my studio, and this is where I do nearly all of my coaching.
And for the audio listeners, when he said this, he sort of looked over his right shoulder, and there's this awesome simulator set up in behind him, well lit. Really looks kind of slick and chic, and I'm sort of jealous. All right, Virgil, as I mentioned, you've been on here before. You recently did a TEDx talk. Tell us a little bit about that before we get into our material today.
I applied because I've always dreamed, ever since I saw the John Wooden TEDx.
Yeah.
John Wooden was a great, I'd never met him, but I read everything that he did because I love coaching. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to be on TEDx one day. And then I saw something that TEDx was coming to Nashville, or in Old Hickory, Tennessee. Yeah. And I filled out the application form. And like 8 weeks later, I get a phone call from a strange number, and I almost never answer the call.
That would be me.
Of a strange phone number. And I picked it up, and it was the TED people telling me that I'd been accepted to speak at TEDx Old Hickory. And it was about elevating your community. And I chose to speak on what we could learn from the great sports teams and great military teams to apply those systems and processes that they used to be great to improve our community. And it went. I have never been more nervous in my life when I stepped on the stage, because it's easy for me to talk golf. Mm-hmm. But when I stepped out of my element, it was like a growing moment. I'd never done anything like that, especially on a platform that gigantic. But I prepared for it, and it went swimmingly well, and it'll be out here very soon. And I'm super excited to share it because I just look forward for the feedback, because it was an exhilarating ride, that's for sure.
I'm certain. Okay, shouldn't date this because it's a podcast. So go to TEDx, folks, and go and see what Virgil did there. Tease us, please, for the folks who haven't seen it yet. What is one thing that great sports teams or military installations did that made successful?
Well, I think that I came up with an acronym, and the whole thing ended with, what fruit can we reap if we follow a process or a system that has been proven successful? And it's get a pair, which is growth mindset, embrace the challenge, take action. From there, you have to accept the situation as it is. Mm-hmm. P, prepare. E, execute the game plan. A, adaptability. And B, a resilient and relentless pursuit to the end. And the whole point is that if our community doesn't, if we want to reap the fruit, mm-hmm. we have to get a pair, because we don't get a pair soon. No fruit to reap at all.
Very cool play on words there. Congratulations, my friend. Okay, folks, check out the TEDx. Let's get to the business here, Virgil. You said to me, and I love this idea. In fact, you offered me a few, and I was like, yes, yes, all good, all good. But this one really resonated. And you said, I would like to address the four most important talents to competing and shooting low. Because, and this one really hit me because you and me both, but certainly me, I see a lot of aspirant young, professionals and collegians and high school players even, and they all want to be on the team and they all want to do well, and they all kind of got the nuts and the bolts of it. But you got to turn that into lower scores and turn that into the mindset to kind of grin and bear it and hang in there and compete. So tee us off, please. What's the first most, in your opinion, or number one, talent required to shoot low and compete?
Well, I believe that the first piece is you have to be able to drive the golf ball effectively. And obviously, we know that the longer you hit it, the more of an advantage you have, as long as it's playable. And what we've learned, and Scott Fawcett from Decade has done a great job of helping us, is that if you can hit it 25 yards longer than will be considered average, you can be in the rough and your proximity to the hole will be closer than somebody who's in the fairway 25 yards behind you. So when we think of the advantages that the best players in the history of the game have had, they were always the longest player of their era.
Yeah.
Hogan, Nicklaus, Norman, Woods, McIlroy, DJ. What do they all do? They drive it longer and more effectively than everybody else. And you can look at their fairways hit numbers. We got Tiger too. I can't believe I didn't leave Tiger. So you get their driving distance numbers. They were so much farther than everybody else, but they were only hitting like 55, 54% of their fairways.
Yeah.
But it really didn't make a difference as long as they weren't penalized or having to pitch out either due to high rough or trees.
Yeah.
So driving effectiveness sets the table for greatness.
I want to throw you a curveball there because, look, I agree. I work on the PGA Tour week in and week out, and I see this. And it certainly is an advantage to hit a shorter club to targets. But here recently, we had Brendan Todd on this podcast, and I have massive admiration, as I do for Brandt Snedeker, who came back from that horrid rib sternum melody, I guess, injury that he had. But Brendan came back from the depths of the game and sort of stuck to what he was doing. And he spoke of driving. Actually, I need to read the quote properly so I don't get this wrong. Forgive me just 1 second.
Yeah.
Going to the big pad here. He said, accuracy wins, distance is a luxury. And now, look, I'm with you, but you said it, and I want you to reiterate it, that, look, driving it long doesn't mean just swinging for the fences and having penalty balls all over the show. You got to keep that cannon controlled, yes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at like what I think of the greatest driver of all time, it comes down to three people: is Greg Norman, Tiger Woods from like 2000 to 2002, and Rory McIlroy. And they generally were in what I consider 97% of the time, their drives may not have been in the fairway, but they were not obstructed or penalized to the green.
Yeah.
And yes, they hit it, I think probably pound for pound, Tiger Woods was longer than anybody's ever been, especially compared to the equipment they were playing.
Yeah.
But they all had a certain shot shape that they could predict, and that's really important. That's almost a fundamental, having a predictable shot shape. But at the end of the day, you have to drive it in play, because 350 in the trees is a pitch out. 350 in the right rough, you have a wedge in your hand. And I would like Tiger from 350 off the tee in the rough over Brendan Todd at 295 in the fairway for the rest of my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. Give some folks advantage there, because look, we all have our threshold, our governor, when it comes to power, and we can break this governor. We've seen guys and girls do it. So they came to Virgil in your sweet studio there for a lesson, and me, young golfer who wants to hit it 25 farther because I've listened to this podcast now, and you look at me like, all right, Mark, you're hitting your club head speeds 102 and you're swinging out of your rear end. To get it that extra distance, where do we start? I guess is my question.
Well, first thing we would do is we would start with the mechanics of the golf swing. Are you properly coiled? If you're right, I'm just going to talk right-handed golfers because most people are. But if does your right leg stay braced And do you coil your shoulders until they can't turn another degree?
No.
Okay, so therein lies the first question: is if when you're trying to maximize your output, you maximize your speed, is you have to coil your shoulders into your right leg until you can't turn anymore, or you lose your right leg. One of those two things, right? So I always say, like, until you're probably, unless you're a female under the age of 15, your backswing thought is turn until you can't.
Yeah.
Into a brace right leg. Now, if you are doing all of the mechanics right and in the backswing, and then we're talking about coming into the downswing, does your left leg post, or do you have that so-called Justin Thomas, Francesco Molinari jump? Like, do you come out of the ground? Bubba Watson's another great example of coming up out of the ground. Are you maximizing your ground forces?
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, we will be doing things to help you, stand up, post up onto your lead leg coming into impact and pulling the golf club up to the finish, not throwing the head into the ball to the finish. If you have the mechanics, now we're left with, are you willing to put in the training to make yourself stronger and faster? That is a gigantic if you're willing. And then there are a couple systems out there. I think, in my opinion, Sasha McKenzie's stack system is probably the most incredible thing I've seen for a golfer who doesn't have the want to train to get bigger, faster, and stronger, but does have the want to maybe 35 minutes every other day do the stack system to increase their club head speed.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we saw what it did for Matthew Fitzpatrick, but I've seen for teenagers, I've seen 7 miles per hour just this year from an already proficient junior golfer, a girl going from 91 to 99 and a boy going from 106 to 113.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, look, I've had Bryson on the show. Bryson was like Bryson 1.0, 2.0, then 3.0. And 2.0, he was like, I just got as heavy as I could because I was just trying to hit as hard as I could. And then he learned by speed regimens and stuff and connecting with Kyle Berkshire that it's a function of strength and efficiency, to use your term.
Yeah. And I think that's, in my opinion, from the people that I've seen in the industry, Sasha McKenzie is the man.
Yeah.
And I really respect everything that he does. So he'd be a great resource for the listeners out there to check out Sasha McKenzie. He's got great YouTube videos. He's awesome.
Being on the show. All right. So driving efficiency is one thing required to shooting low and competing. Number 2, what is that, please?
You have to know how far you carry the golf ball with every club in your bag.
Preach, Reverend Herring. Okay.
I really think that most people, like, here's the thing. When you're on the driving range on a PGA Tour event, I mean, you can watch people with the TrackMan or whatever device that they have behind them, and they can hit a shot like 171.5. And then you hear the beep, and then the coach be like, yeah, 171.8.
Yeah.
They know how far it goes, very, like, to almost to the half yard in some cases, right? I don't think the average golfer is predictable in, like, within 10 yards. Almost all people think they hit it slightly longer to a lot longer than they really do.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's take that piece out, just covering, it'd be great to know how far you carry it. The second part is that you're a competing golfer. The most important thing you need to know is, what do you need to carry? The water, the bunker, the high grass, whatever it is. And then why? Well, when you're playing in the Northeast on bent greens and it's soft and you're 168 to the hole, the ball's probably going to go maybe 1 yard past its ball mark at the most.
Yeah.
But if you're playing East Lake in September on hard Bermuda greens and you got a 168 carry over the bunker, but the pin is 177, all you have to do is basically just barely carry that bunker and the ball's going to release to the hole. Yeah. So knowing the golf course and what the greens are like is really important, because some greens, the ball sticks in the ball mark, and others it releases 12, 17 feet.
I'm so glad you highlighted that, because, and I want you to talk about this, please. So many golfers arrive at the ball, pop out the cart, grab the rangefinder, laser the flag. And then they're like, 150. My 150 club is a 8-iron. But what the 8-iron does might be 150 total and not 150 in the air. So please differentiate there.
Yeah, most people, especially if they have access to a launch monitor, they don't look at the carry number because they're what's the total number. And so they're like, oh man, hit 8-iron 153. And then they look over there and the carry was 146.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's so fascinating when you look at the numbers, like almost every green that is missed short. And there's a little bit of psychology. And I got some of this from Tom Watson.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting ready to go play in a pro-am in Ireland in 2004. And he told me to not try to do what Tiger does, which is hit these stingers and manipulated shots. He told me to take one more club than I thought I needed until I hit it over the green. So let's just say it's 20 miles per hour of wind, and that means it's going to be playing at least 30 yards longer. Keep in mind, people out there, that if you're playing in 20 miles per hour of wind, you're gaining 1 yard for every mile per hour downwind, but you're losing 1.7 in. So that 20 is 34 yards into the wind.
Yeah.
And so he's like, if you think that from 150, that's your 8-iron, and now it's playing 184, and you think, well, that's 6, why don't you just hit 5 and try to hit it over the green? Two things happen. One, I've never hit it over the green. I do find it funny, though, that the only time that he did hit it over the green was the one that broke my heart. Broke my heart the most. But the other thing is that what it does psychologically, when you hit a ball over the green, you have overperformed against your expectation value. Mm-hmm. So even though you're over the green, you are better than you thought you were. But there's hardly anything worse, even for the best players, to be, 150, absolutely flush that 6-iron into the 20-mile-per-hour wind and hit it in the front bunker when they flushed it. Mm-hmm. That means they underperformed their expectation levels. If you factor in what that does to the psyche over a long period of time, yes, most of the time over the green is not necessarily the best place to be, but psychologically speaking, I'm better than I think I am. Mm-hmm. And it really shifts the mind on your own self-image. And the self-image is a very critical point to playing great golf.
Okay, I'm going to mine a little bit here for more gold along these things. First off, on this very show, Hal Sutton has been on you, and you talk about Watson, Hall of Famer, Hal Sutton. My goodness, I mean, what an achiever, what a hard worker. And he said he learned from, get this, right? He learned from Ben Hogan, because his dad was in the oil business, Byron Nelson, and his mentor when he arrived on the PGA Tour was Raymond Floyd, ultimate competitor. And wow. he said he got one lesson from Floyd, and that was hit the ball pin high every time. Every time. Now, for folks watching or listening to this, go and see when you play again how often you are pin high. I would venture a guess it's less than 25% of the time. And secondly, I want to say this, in terms of being over the green, maybe on the PGA Tour, it's bad because greens are so fast and firm. So you're pitching or chipping or hitting a bunker shot downhill. But for your average club golfer, don't you think? Over the green's not so bad. I mean, most of the trouble's normally in the front. You with me?
Yeah. 100%. I think that's so spot on. We always have to, every once in a while, there are certain topics that we have to delineate. That's a PGA Tour problem. Mm-hmm. And this is an average or everybody's problem. The PGA Tour, yes, they have to be very concerned, especially there are certain golf courses that are known for their severity of their greens. Like it's really bad. It's a bad idea to be long at Augusta National on certain holes.
Yeah.
But still, even some, like Colonial's not that bad to be over the green on. So, and Hilton Head, not bad to be over the green on. So that's not a ubiquitous PGA Tour statement. There's just certain golf courses that you have to strategically set up a short miss. But other than that, I would say 95 times out of 100, everywhere in the world, it would be better for you to hit a shot that goes slightly long than it would be to be slightly short.
Yes. All right. Now for observation number 3, I'm going to borrow your innuendo you talked about earlier with getting a pair.
Yeah.
I'm big on low-hanging fruit as it pertains to golf improvements. Now, your tip number 3 to me is low-hanging fruit for better scoring. So go there.
To be able to hit a proficient 20 to 40 yard pitch shot is an absolute ace of spades in your pocket for multiple reasons. Number one, in the world we live in today, and thanks to Scott Fawcett for all this information, the closer we hit it to the hole, the closer we're going to hit our next shot to the hole.
Yeah.
But in statistics speaking, 20 to 40 yard shots on the PGA Tour miss more greens in regulation than from 100.
You're joking.
It's a tough shot.
Yeah.
To be able to land your 20 to 40 yard shot onto the green with a proficiency, that really makes your par 5 scoring go up, your short par 4 scoring go up, bad T-ball pitch out scoring go up.
Yep.
Those three things ultimately are what allowed Tiger to dominate in his prime. His par 5 scoring was absolutely insanely low, like 4.3. Every time he hit a poor shot, he pitched it out and he would get it up and down an absurd amount of the time. Yeah. And he dominated par 4s that were under 360 yards on the PGA Tour. Just totally crushed it. And how? I know that people could argue that Seve was better than Tiger, but the only person I can think of that's even in the ballpark is Seve when it comes to Tiger from 20 to 40 yards. And it is a super important shot.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I want to share a couple observations with you and let you kind of elaborate. First off, I say this, it's kind of like my little ditty, because I was a college coach for a while and they don't listen very well. So you have to say things that stick. Okay.
Yep.
And I would always say to them, okay, if you are good at shot number 3, you're going to make lots of 3s and 4s. If you're good at shot number 1, you're going to make fewer 6s and 7s and that sort of stuff. That would be the way I looked at it. And they would listen. And then you talk about par 5 scoring. When Webb Simpson was on this podcast and he talked with me, at that time, Webb Simpson, who's not the longest guy in the world, was leading the par 5 scoring on the PGA Tour. And I asked him about that. And he goes, well, I'm pretty good with hybrids and fairway metals and stuff. He goes, but from inside 20, 30 yards, I'm always trying to play to the side which makes the shot as easy as possible. But I worked on that and excelled in that. And here's Webb, beating the Rorys and the DJs of the world in par 5 scoring because of the third shot.
100%. Now, once again, therein lies that strategy piece. Yeah. He gave away his secret, right? Knowing angles, knowing that on the PGA Tour, 75 to 80% of the pins are tucked, to know where to give himself the most room to land the ball. Because at 30 yards, you're not backing a ball up.
No.
At best, you're hoping for what I call the beanbag shot, where it hits and bounces and stops pretty close to its second contact with the earth. That's at the best. But if you're coming out of the rough, you have to have some room. So if a pin's back left and Webb's going to try to miss it to the right, he knows that maybe if I just push it 5 yards, I might be in the first cut, which is going to reduce the amount of spin I can put on the ball. So I have to have the room to maybe land it 18 feet short and let it release. Because if I short side it and I got no room, well, now I'm not really having a real good chance. I have to make a 15, 18 footer to make birdie. So there's, at the highest level, there's so many moving parts to greatness, and some people don't have to worry about some things. But at the end of the day, angles and knowing how to attack a golf course for what you bring to the table is really one of the most important pieces. Don't try to be Rory unless you got Rory's game. There's more Webb Simpsons out there, so to speak, than there are Rory McIlroys. But learning how to tear apart a golf course, what I call it mathematically, is a really important piece.
You reference strategy and not just hitting and hoping, having a plan, making the next shot as simple as possible. And then you also talked about spin, your beanbag shot. And I don't think the average golfer watching or listening to this realizes how often when I'm out there between the ropes with a player and he's got 30 or 40 yards or whatever, and he's getting relief from a sprinkler head in the rough or something, or even in the fairway. And the flag's in the back and the greens are receptive, through the summertime because of rainstorms over here all the time. If the area of relief is inside or from the area of relief from the ball happens to clip the first cut of rough, if they've got a long ways for the ball to go on the green, they'll drop the ball in that first cut to mitigate some of the spin. So they know, okay, I can fly this thing lower and kind of run it in there, because if it's coming from the fairway, it might spin, it might do the beanbag, or it might hop forward. That's the unpredictability of it, but just how widely they think, to your observation.
Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time with Stan Utley.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of golf schools with Stan, and he hates backspin because
So did Sevi, you know?
yeah, you can't predict the backup. So Stan always liked to throw like the ball in there as beanbaggy as possible and let it release a little bit to the hole, because that's predictable.
Mm-hmm.
The rollout is more predictable than the backspin. Now, there are very, like, less than probably 8% of golf world really have to worry about backing a ball up. But at the end of the day, the ability to, one, know how far you're going to hit it, and two, be able to control the spin is important. And I know that the tour players love that first cut, because that's probably going to eliminate the chances of it really backing up. And that gives them that hit and short release back pins. That's a really good thing to have in your pocket, to not have to fly it all the way back there. There's a lot of moving parts to that answer, but yeah, man, being able to control your spin is super important.
Well, I'm going to stay with the moving parts. Again, the tour pro, because they are that good, can manipulate a lofted wedge. But from 40 yards, wouldn't you advocate that a lot of golfers, juniors, high schoolers, even collegians, club golfers listening to this, may want to look at more than their lob wedge from inside this range for certain shots, given the situation?
Yeah, because we have to throw into the situation that how many percent of people truly know how to impact the golf ball correctly to optimize spin control? Probably not that many. But then there's a host of others that are almost there. They don't have the perfect shaft lean with the perfect descending blow with the divot 4 inches past the low point 4 inches past the golf ball, but they clip it nice. So those people, even though they wouldn't have what was now becoming a very popular term, the correct spin loft for impact, sometimes we could have better luck with a 52-degree wedge from 70 yards than we will with a full lob wedge. One, I always referenced it like throwing darts. Dart throwers throw it flat. They don't throw it way up into the air. So to be able to keep your 52, it's a smoother, slower swing, much easier to repeat. The ball flight comes down. It gives you that hit, land, maybe beanbag, but maybe a release to 12 feet past the ball mark. Man, that is a huge shot for these players to learn. And when you're talking 20 to 40 yards, I would probably not choose 52 if there's a front bunker to worry about or a front pin, but a 56 or their sand wedge is probably a better choice for two reasons. One, the sand wedge usually has more bounce than the lob wedge, so it gives them a little insurance for contact, and it gives them a little higher trajectory than the 52, but not so balloony like the 60 for most golfers.
And I'm going to call out the folks who've been, or at least say, hey, all you folks, as someone's told you, you flip it through contact. I would contend, Virgil, and I want your take, that a lot of these folks, especially with short clubs, they're trying to garner more speed. That's why they're throwing their hands and wrists at the thing. And so if you are trying to stretch a lob wedge, there's every likelihood you flipping this thing and then miss its occur. But if you go with something a little shorter, then the hands will naturally quieten down, because you know, and this is to your Tom Watson story, I'm not trying to overhit this. So as a result, the hands and the wrists and stuff there, that final cog in the chain of energy release is kind of just dulled a little bit.
Well, like, how I put it like this, to speak of the golf mechanics, right? Most people, when they hit a wedge, they're compelled to try to help the ball up a little bit. So to not bore people with physics, but as soon as the body goes backward, it stops rotating. And as soon as rotation stops, levers get thrown. That's the early release. So you're seeing a lot of the best players, and there's, Victor Hovland's story on going from probably one of the 5 worst pitchers of the golf ball to one of the best pitchers of the golf ball in 1 year. And thanks to a good buddy of mine, Joe Mayo, you're seeing that you should be feeling like you're getting in front of the ball slightly, so that even if you do release it a little early, you're still going to clip the ball first. But this game is such an evil game. The club makes you feel like you got to get back underneath it to help it up into the air. And that gets most people, but it's actually counterintuitive to feel like you move forward and keep turning. Now you get the descending blow. It helps you keep your right wrist for a right-handed golfer, maintain that angle, and you clip it off the grass much better. But it's really important to stay barely in front of where you started.
Lovely. All right, we're 3 of 4. What's the final one? This one, folks. I love. I got the memo beforehand, but I love this one.
I believe one of the most underappreciated, underutilized, and underpracticed skill in the game is lag putting.
Under practice for certain.
Oh my goodness. And like, to me, I'm guilty as charged. My mindset from age 16 to 23, when I was the dreamer that I might be able to do something in this game, was I'm just going to hit it closer to the hole. I don't need to work on my 40 and 50 foot putting. I'm just going to hit it closer to the hole. And if I would have grown up in an era where Scott Fawcett was in my ear at age 16, it'd have been better. But at the end of the day, what I've learned now is if I'm not really clicking, this allows me to play to the middle of the green and make easy pars because I'll roll my 30-footer up there to 2 feet, tap it in, and go to the next hole. And if there's anything that I've learned from Brandt, is to just hang around until you find something.
Yeah.
But don't shoot yourself out of it. And Brandt is certainly one of the 10 greatest putters in tour history. And there's a lot to be learned, because if you can take the pressure off by being able to hit it into the fat side of the green, roll it up there to 2 or 3 feet, tap it in for par, and go to the next hole and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Good lag putting can keep your, round well below standard, because what ends up happening if you don't practice your lag putting is you feel like you don't have your A game. You play to the middle of the green, you got a 35-footer, and you 3-putt it. You go to the next hole, and you're like, yeah, it's okay. First hole, wasn't quite sure of the green speed, whatever. Next hole's a par 3. You hit 5-iron to 35 feet. You roll that one up there to 5 feet, lip it out. Now you're 2 over through 2. You've hit 2 greens regulations, 2 3-putts. What's the next thing you're thinking on your approach shot on 3?
Got to hit it close.
I gotta start taking at the flags because I'm a terrible lag putter.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the negative self-talk, and the negative self-talk comes from underpreparedness, and the underpreparedness is incorrect perception of what it takes to be a great player. Yep. So to me, lag putting is such an essential skill to make an elite player stand out and a good player to take it to the next level, because most people do not have the correct perception of what great golf looks like. Most people's version of what great golf looks like has never, ever happened. It's too perfect.
Yeah.
It's so mundane how unbelievably good Tiger in his prime, Jack in his prime, Greg Norman in his prime, Faldo, they just ground you up until they got hot because they just put it in play, hit it to the middle of the green, made a par, oops, get to a par 5, hit it at 2-putt birdie, and then to get a little momentum going. And, as you know this, Mark, I mean, literally, the birdies on the PGA Tour come in bunches. They'll usually make 3 or 4 in a row in like an hour's time. They get hot, and then they kind of cool off, and there's their 68. They have 4 or 5 birdies, make a bogey somewhere, but those birdies come in bunches because they get a little hot streak.
I want to add to that a couple things. I began my broadcast career in radio, and our job there was to describe the action, unlike TV, where I just add something to the action, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times I would stand behind a green, and when you were doing a radio show or TV, you're on the leaders, that I would describe a shot high draw coming in there, lands 25 feet left of the flag. 3-iron hits the green, that's going to be about 40 feet away. As I sort of put a period on the call, and I can't, to this day, I remember how many times I said 25 feet, 25 feet, 30 feet in terms of approach shots, because that is what these guys are doing the lion's share of the time. And I don't think golfers, to your thing about perception, realize that.
Yeah, I tell you, I'll never forget this day as long as I live. It was 2007 Bob Hope Chrysler Classic. I'm with Brandt, and I'm not in the conversation. I'm just listening to Boo Weekly talk to Ian Poulter and somebody else. And he said, I only work on 2 putts. I hit 30-foot putts and 4-foot putts because I'm going to hit it into the middle of every green unless I have a wedge in my hand. I won't even take a 9-iron at the flag unless the flag's in the middle of the green. I'm going to hit it in the middle of the green. And I just want to be the greatest 30-foot putter in the world, never miss a short one, and then be able to take advantage of the par fives and the holes in which I got wedge into it, where I will take on the flagstick. And I was like, I listened to that. At that point, I hadn't really gotten all the information on the analytics. I'm like, that is so strange that he literally only hits 30 footers and 4-footers.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of merit to that. There's a lot of merit to that, because if you think about it, in 2015, Jason Day didn't miss a putt inside of 5 feet for the whole year. You're going to be a dominant figure if you're not missing a putt inside of 5 feet.
Do you know that year, I asked him about it post 2015, and he said his goal that year was to play the par threes in even par on average, and he played the par threes to 3.01, which tells you he's not firing at a whole bunch of flags on the threes, because I've never seen a bad three. And for that matter, and this is to all the collegians and the high schoolers and even some pros to this, I've never really seen a bad 72 either. There can be days on the tour that you shoot 73 and you're getting drilled by everybody. But if you shoot the 72, like Nick Price mentioned to me, then you stay in the game, you're still in it. But if you try and force the issue and you shoot 73 or 4, now that's a different animal.
100%. Like, patience in the tour world or in the competitive world usually stems from preparedness.
Yeah.
They recognize that they can not give away a golf tournament early by they don't have their best stuff, knowing how to mathematically angle their shots to give themselves the best chance for success, hit it into the middle of the green, take the risk out, lag it up there. You never know when you might make one. You don't make a lot of putts from that range, but you just don't want to give any away.
Yeah.
And that is such a powerful mechanism to being a great competitor, is that when you don't feel like you have to do something when you don't have your best stuff, and you can just kind of wait around and let the game come to you. That's what the best players do, is they're patient enough to know that they're not going to suck for 4 hours, but they might not have it all day, but they're going to have like a nice run of par 5, short par 4, par 5, where that they could go birdie, eagle, and it could totally change their day, because they missed the first 4 fairways, they missed the first 4 greens, they get it up and down, save their par. Boy, this is going to be a hard day. They hold on, they play to their percentages, and then they catch that little hot streak, usually because it's like that, like I said, par 5, short par 4, par 5. They go 4 under in that stretch, and they get Mo on their team, little momentum, and then they finish strong. And then you always see that interview. It's like, man, I really got a lot out of that round today, because I didn't really have my best stuff, got hot late, and I'm really excited about it, but I got to go to the range today because I got to figure something out before tomorrow. That you hear that a lot on the tour.
That's uncanny too, for the collegian who's like, I'm suck, I can't hit it worth the flip, and then they make a few accidental birdies, then they're hitting it great, just because of the momentum. Hey, I want to cap that with a Boo Weeklyism, who on the show said, Mr. Mark, I had never seen the middle of the green move. He goes, I'm hitting it. He's like a hunter. He goes, it's a sitting duck. I'm going to shoot at the thing that doesn't move all the time. So let's say the listeners now take heed of what Virgil Herring says. You should, because he knows what he's talking about. And they hit at the middle of the green, and they're faced with 30, 40, 25, 20 feet all day long. What's a drill? How can they go and practice the lag putting, please?
Well, so first things first, right? The transfer of energy between you having a ball in your hand and rolling it to the hole is remarkably similar to the exact same amount of energy that your arms would need to stroke the putt to make the ball roll that far.
Okay.
Most important piece to that is that you have to have good enough mechanics that you're hitting it close to the center of the face. So you have to be able to hit the ball consistently on the face.
Right.
It consistently could be slightly on the toe or slightly on the heel or in the dead center. But if you're consistently hitting it there, you have a degree of predictability. Yes. But one of my favorite drills is just take 4 balls with you onto the putting green. Hold your putter. If you're, I'll say you're a right-handed golfer. You hold your putter in your left hand, and you just put the golf ball in your right hand, and just roll the ball with your right arm.
Yeah.
And imagine how hard your right arm would have to swing until you get the ball to roll to the hole.
All right.
After you've successfully rolled the ball with your right hand to the hole, put that right hand on the putter and make the same motion, and watch how unbelievably efficient you roll the golf ball.
Yeah, it's amazing. As I was listening to that, that's a fantastic drill, folks. And you're not going to look crazy. Your friends aren't going to think you're a nutcase. Just tell them Virgil said so and Mark agreed. But I'm looking at your simulator there. And DeChambeau, when he was playing on the tour, I would see that guy all the time on the putting green out there long range with a launch monitor, measuring how fast the ball was coming off the face. So that spoke to what you were saying about the consistency of contact. And then when he got that down, and he's like, well, if I swing the putter this hard with this much emphasis, the ball's going that far on the screen. And it almost became like math to him in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I have found it is very interesting. There are people out there that are wired for that number. Like they hit wedge shots with that in mind too, which is really crazy to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's super important for you to find something that you can cling to that is timing / speed related. And some people feel that they can control that with a tick tock in their head or a 1-2 in their head. And some people can really just have an innate sense of that ball coming off at 22 miles per hour or 17 miles per hour. Each person has their own gifts. It's just your job is to figure out what do you have to do to ensure that. And the only thing that I can tell you is that if you can do something that practices through a gate so that you consistently have to hit it in a fairly consistent part of the putter face, that's the actual key. Bryson DeChambeau hits it pretty much dead center every single time. So that makes his speed control visual there easy for him. Yeah. But for the 18 handicapper, if you put like impact tape on their putter face and they hit 10 putts, you might see 6 impact spots because they hit it all over the face. So we definitely know that a ball off the toe is going to roll deader than a ball that's hit in the center of the face with the exact same stroke. So people could be like, I must be making this radically different stroke. And like, no, you're hitting it differently on the club face and you're getting a different energy transfer when you hit it. So you have to tidy up your impact points for you to become a better leg putter.
Which, folks, is as simple as drilling. And I know one Tiger Woods every day, every practice day, tournament day, first thing he does on the green, you speak of that gate, he puts a tee outside the toe and the heel of the putter and hits 3-footers for about 10 minutes doing that.
Yeah. And he does it with one hand a lot too.
Yeah. And he's actually, and you can actually see the wear mark in the middle of that Scotty Cameron putter of his too.
That's a pretty valuable putter. That's a, he's remarkable in his mental ability to stay focused for long periods of time and to be able to sift through all the information debris to get to the true fundamental so that he's not wasting his time when he's practicing. So he recognizes that for him to be a great short putter and for him to be a great lag putter, he has to have impact face control. And he does that through gates and other simulations that force him to do it right. And if he doesn't do it right, he gets the feedback, which is what ultimately our practice should have when you don't have a coach hanging around you. What are you doing so that if you hit a bad one, you know what happened instead of guessing what happened?
Brilliant. And folks, is arguably Tiger, that is the greatest of all time. And he does it every day, even now. It's not like he's developed it. It's continually honing his craft.
It's remarkable. There are many things that he does that it's right in front of our face, but we want to see something else that's not there because he's so much better than most. But it's really not in the frill. It's in the core. It's in the fundamentals of what he does that allowed him to think clearer because he had less interference in his mind because there was way less doubt. in his mind.
Oh, so good. All right. I'm looking at the clock. There's probably someone waiting for you in your studio there for the lesson. Virgil, tell the folks where they can find you, the social media, the website, if they're in Nashville, how they can get in touch with you, please.
So on social media, on both TikTok and Instagram, it's Virgil.Herring. For me, you can catch me on virgilherring.com as my website. My new video series, which is bBrandt.com. I cover all of these fundamentals with the things that I think are the most important parts of the game. That's the first of a volumes that I'm going to do. The first ones are the fundamentals, then there'll be characteristics, and then it'll be idiosyncrasies of greatness. But that's out right now. It's VHBlueprint.com. And my phone number is 615-579-5190. I can do online, I can do, via FaceTime, or obviously here in my studio in Nashville, Tennessee.
Get him before he gets further booked up, folks. Virgil, thanks for your time. I appreciate you.
All right, thanks for having me on, buddy. Best of luck to you, and have a great rest of your year, buddy.